Well, good afternoon, everybody, and hello. Back with another aviation video. This one is on the Curtiss P40B. Now, I had a dilemma with this. I was going to use one of my Kobe ones, which is a P40E, but since I want to go into evolution of and a little bit more detail on aircraft, we're going to start with the B. This aircraft is an inline version of the Curtiss P-36, a radial engine fighter in the late 1930s that replaced biplane fighters in the United States Army Air Force. What it had was a radial engine, some kind of a Pratt and Whitney, and I'm not going to go into detail because this is on the P-40. And it didn't meet the Army's requirements. I think it had a top speed of 308 miles an hour. They wanted something that could go exceed 300 miles an hour with a top speed near 350 miles an hour. And what happened was they came up with this a P-36 with an Allison V1710 liquid cooled V12, glycol V12. Allison is owned by General Motors, so just so that you get the drift there. This engine, I'm going to go into this engine first because it's key to understanding this plane. It's 1,710 cubic inches or 28 liters, and it powered the P40, the P38, the P39. It's a modular engine that could be using different superchargers, gearboxes, and ratios and accessories for various aircraft. 1,000 horsepower to 1,500 horsepower. Its strength is at low altitudes, and why is that? It had a single stage supercharger here. And what a supercharger and turbocharger does with an aircraft, it lets it breathe at high altitude. If you have a normally aspirated engine, and that'd be something like just this without the supercharger, as it gets up higher, it loses air, it loses speed. It can't do it. It can't breathe. My closest description of that would probably be modern cars. If you have a non-turbocharged car and you have a car that's turbocharged, you notice the difference because a turbo will let the engine breathe more, thus giving it more horsepower. My own personal example is I have a Chevy Equinox as my main. My other vehicle is a Volkswagen Passat that's turbocharged. And you drive it on a highway, especially if it's got hilly roads and stuff, the Volkswagen is the one you want to drive. The Equinox, because it's not turbocharged, it's got horsepower, it's got power, starts to peter out. It is what it is. As you increase height, you breathe. The air gets thinner. Same for driving too. If you want to go and you want something faster, you want air in it. Okay, but that's just to give the mechanics of the turbocharger. When they made this engine, they wanted to use a single stage supercharger. The two stage ones weren't there yet. They eventually would come with the Spitfire, which enabled the Merlin to breathe at super high altitude, which got fitted to the P-51 Mustang. But for now, almost all these inline engines were single stage supercharged. So what would make this plane go? I mean, you have to keep it light, you have to keep it aerodynamic. And this is a very attractive plane. It is very aerodynamic. It is not like the P40E. You see videos of them, the 650 caliber machine guns. It's kind of wonky and clunky. This thing is actually pretty sleek. If you look at it, when it came out in 1939, it was such a great plane that the Army had to have it. It's cooled by ethylene glycol, and it's good up to like 15,000 feet. After that, it could not breathe. And if you look at how sleek and streamlined this plane is, it cannot fit a turbocharger. The turbochargers that were available were built by General Motors. They had a little bit different sizes and stuff. The P-38 eventually had two turbochargers, one on each engine, which allowed it to breathe at high altitude and became the Army Air Corps' biggest killer of Japanese planes in the Pacific. But going back to this plane, um, it's a nice plane. It's got a climb rate of 2,860 feet per minute. It has 250 caliber machine guns up here firing through the propeller arc as a synchronization system, and 230 calibers in each wing. The service ceiling is 29,100 feet. Range is 730 miles without drop tank, and speeds vary. I have a book on the Flying Tigers, and they gave this a speed of 345. That would be for the C. This one, the B, the speed ranges from 200 and 352 miles an hour to 357. Why the variance in speed? It depended upon the level of high octane gas and the purity of the gas. So if you run like premium fuel, use that as an analogy and as a explaining point, you'd get more power. And the same goes with the car. If you put premium fuel in your car, the car might be rated for, I don't know, 175 horsepower. You put premium gas and it'll boost it up to 185 or more, a little bit more. And that's the same with this. Your speed increases, not a lot, but enough to make it a noticeable difference. So, needless to say, for what this plane was, and basically this would be like one of the first air superiority fighters. It's supposed to clear the sky of enemy planes. Problem is, it wasn't very maneuverable. I mean, against European style planes, yes, but against the lightweight Japanese planes, nah. But this plane so impressed the United States Army Air Corps that they decided to, in 1939, order 524 of these aircraft to re-equip them as the main pursuit craft of the Army Air Corps. At Pearl Harbor, this was the main fighter, and it shot down Japanese planes, including some Zeros. Engaging from Wheeler Airfield and from Haleiwa, that's the hidden field where Lieutenants Welsh and Taylor took off in their P-40s. Watch the movie Tora, 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 and you'll see that and their actual fighting of them and their P-40Bs going after Japanese naval aircraft. They also fought in the Philippines. They were based at Clark Field, Manila, and they were up to mixed success against the Japanese. Now, let's move to the country of origin of this plane. If you notice, it has these wild little markings. Most people don't know. Oh, I mean, what are these markings? These are the markings of the Republic of China, now known as Taiwan. Taiwan uses the same markings. It is illegal in communist China to have this. When I got this plane, it had these blue circles, but decals of stars. It would not allow them to make this with the dreaded Taiwan Republic of China markings on it. But this is how these planes were. This is a very cool plane. I'll show you some details on it. This is another 21st century toy. This is 1/18 scale. The reason I don't have these out that much is because they're kind of large. Hard to store them and have them on display. This is in my lower level of my house, and it's out on display. But I'm going to show you some interesting things with this plane. It had retractable landing gear, but it had very, I don't know, sophisticated and complex system. What happened is these wheels would come out like this and they would rotate. There was a lot of pneumatic and hydraulic components. The landing gear would come out like that. And then the tail wheel. I'm going to try to pop it out. The tail wheel is kind of a pain to get out, but just so that you see, this is fully retracted and very, very well concealed aerodynamically landing gear. And here it is with all its landing gear down. Cockpit will slide back. I think I'm going to take the cockpit off just to give you a look-see. And there you go. So these planes went to China. President Roosevelt allowed these to go through third-party means and be delivered in Rangoon, Burma, in crates to be used by the American Volunteer Force, the AVG, aka the Flying Tigers. They trained under General Claire Chennault how to use the strengths of this plane. This plane had an incredibly fast diving speed. So what you want to do with the P-40 is you want to get it in the air, you want to fly it up high, and you want to dive on your target. The Japanese Zero was slower than the P-40, 331 miles an hour to the 357 in this one if it's using premium fuel, higher octane. So there's a noticeably faster and better armed plane. I mean, even though it doesn't have cannon, it has two extras 30 cal machine guns, and it has the 250s. And 50 caliber machine guns are brutal to be hit with. These planes did their job. They did a great job, and Chennault taught his guys how to fly and use the boom and zoom energy tactic of going up high, diving down. Did it work? Oh, yeah, it worked. From the time the Flying Tigers were in existence, from December of 1941 through July 4th, 1942, 299 Japanese planes were shot down and 153 destroyed on the ground. These are actual documented figures for just a handful of these P-40s. They mauled the Japanese, and the Japanese were like afraid to go up against them. Um, what else can I tell you about these? They outmatched the Japanese using the tactics that Color Chenault devised for them to use, and they came out on top. And the reason they were able to get good pilots for the Flying Tigers is better pay than the U.S. Army. Pilots were paid $600 a month and $500 for every Japanese plane they shot down. That's a lot of money back in 1941. I mean, if I were a pilot, I wouldn't want to be in the military. I'd go here too. You'll notice the red circled flag things. That's $500 for each one of those that this guy shot down. So, I mean, that's pretty good. Also, this plane had good use of flaps and other control surfaces. I'll pull them down because I can't do it on here. This is what it would look like when the plane takes off the control flaps so they could get it in the air. And it was a really good plane. It worked, it was durable, it was rugged. And the Allison engine, even though it's a liquid-cooled engine, could absorb punishment. They tested it being shot at by rifle caliber and larger machine gun bullets. And it did a pretty good job of being able to come back with bullets in the engine. And this plane is actually a really good plane. Let's see if I can get the pilot out, because this is 1/18 scale. Here we go. I'll give you a look-see of the inside of the plane. Kind of hard because it's so large, but let me see what I can do here. So it had a nice inside cockpit. I might take some pictures of the inside and put them up just as photos so you could see, but basically this is what the pilots had to jump into. And I always liked this of these pilots, these P-40 pilots. An A2 Army Air Corps leather jacket, the U.S. patch on the side, so they knew they're Americans, and the blood shield, so the Chinese knew that this guy was flying for the Chinese Air Force. He was a Flying Tiger. And the Chinese worked really good. They have a good ground-based system to get these guys in the air, do their battles. So once this guy climbed into the cockpit, and I guess I'm going to try to get pictures of this, and I'll put them up just so you see. His next job was to use a roll-up window thing, kind of like the old cars have. Well, they still do if you don't have electric windows. Close the canopy shut, and then take off. When it took off, I mean, if everything worked properly, which it did, this gear would go like this. And the gear was kind of complex compared to the other planes. It would retract up nice. And the strut just had covers on them. The flaps would be actuated to get it in this spot. And there she was, ready for combat. And like I said, they would get up as high as they could. They'd spot the Japanese, dive on them, shoot them as quickly as they can, using energy to go down and to climb really fast. It was able to outclimb using energy tactics and go again for the next attack. Soviets used the same kind of tactics in the war on the Eastern Front with the P-39. The P-39 is actually faster than this plane, but this plane did a number, because the planes it was going up against were the Nakajima Ki-27 Nate. It's a monoplane with fixed landing gear. It's kind of hokey looking, and the the Oscar, the Ki-8, I think it was called, very deadly and maneuverable in flight, but extremely slow. 308 miles an hour top speed. So this baby, I mean, dominated. And at the time they were flying, there were very few, if any, Zeros in China. They kind of pulled them back once the war started because they needed the Zeros to fight the United States, Britain, whoever they were fighting in the Pacific. And they kind of left the Flying Tigers to deal with the Japanese Army aircraft. And they made mincemeat of them. I mean, literally. Um, these guys, when the war happened, the Army Air Corps wanted them all back in flying, or the Navy, or the Marines, or whatever. And what happened is on July 4th, 1942, the Flying Tigers came to an end. They became the 14th Air Force. Claire Chennault was made a lieutenant general in the United States Army Air Corps, as was Jimmy Doolittle, the head of the Doolittle raid on Tokyo. He went to run the 8th Air Force in Britain, and Claire Chennault the 14th in China. He got more P40s. He got the P40E, the ugly one that's got the overhang. And it had all to do with the radiator. This one, the way the radiator was set up, it was a symmetry and kind of an aerodynamic cleanliness, which later models didn't have. But because later models could go faster, 362 to 380 some miles an hour, I don't know. They decided with that one. I think this one's actually more maneuverable than the E. You could actually do a little bit with this one. And they did. They did. Like I said, 299 shot down, 153 destroyed on the ground by this plane. This plane did an awesome job. And if you look at it from a one-to-one standpoint, this is actually a really good low to mid-altitude air superiority fighter. And it actually saved a lot of Chinese lives and kind of had a little bit of a bond. I think even today in China, they kind of recognize this. It was a sacrifice because the Chinese hate the Japanese, and anything to do against them would be heroic. And one of the things would be these guys, because these guys fought for China. And back during that time, Mao Zedong and Chiang Kai-shek were supposedly allied to keep the Japanese out. So these guys had a lot of support on the ground. Sky Watchers and others to help them prep for their attacks. And they would take off with pretty good information of where the Japanese were going to be and sit up there and wait for them and take them out. 14th Air Force did good too. One notable thing, James Howard, he was a Navy ace who joined the Flying Tigers. After the Flying Tigers were no more and they had to either join up with the United States Army, Air Force, Navy, or Marines, or be demoted and become a private in the U.S. Army in the trenches. He joined the U.S. Army Air Corps and wound up flying in Europe. He flew a P-51B Ding Hao. And on his plane, he has his kills from China and the newer ones against the Germans in Europe on the side. I used to have a model of that plane. I have a P-51B 1/32nd scale. I think I'm going to do a video of that next, give you a little bit more. That's an early model, just like this one. But the big thing of this model, this was America's plane at the start of the war. This was the Army Air Corps' main fighter plane. The P-38 was there. The P-38 was an exceptional plane, way faster than this, over 420 miles an hour, with its twin engines and then two superchargers and the boom. And I'm going to do one on the P-38. The P-38 is the same like this. It's 1/18 scale, and it's 21st century toys. But I just want to get everybody that watches my videos acquainted with other models besides the Kobe models. And I'll do more with the Kobe's, but these are very special before Kobe's, because if you look at them, these are really nice. And these ran about, oh, 60 bucks if you bought them at Toys R Us. But if you were smart and you bought them at Walmart under the Motormax brand, 17, 18 bucks. And that's how I got a lot of these. A lot of people like to collect them. They like to keep the packaging because that's not necessarily so. If you keep the plane in good shape, you could get a good price for them. I had people try to buy a lot of these planes, and I'm like, no. If I want to get rid of them, I'll sell them myself. But I still have them. Most of them are crated up. But I have the P-38 out. I have this, and I have a P-47 that I could put. I have a beautiful P-51 Mustang and a Corsair, too. And an F-86 Sabre, a MiG-15, and an FW-190D with a Umo inline engine. But at this point in time, 1941, this was the fighter. The E version started to come around to replace it. But like I said, this thing is lighter than the E version, and you could actually do some maneuvers in this plane and go up. And the reason being, it is an attractive plane for what it is. It basically took a radial engine fighter, they slimmed it out a little bit more, and they put in General Motors Allison V1710 engine, and it worked. And it worked for the Chinese Air Force and the American pilots that flew them who wound up becoming some of the best American pilots of the Second World War because of the skill and the talent level they achieved flying. Let me give you another little good look at this plane, and then I'm going to cut this so I don't bore everybody with a long video, but this was state of the art. And the Flying Tigers had three squadrons. It always had, I don't know, 18 to 20 some planes in them. Let's see if I made a note of that. Yeah, 3 squads of 18 planes. This would be one of them. The squad marking would be that beautiful lady up there. And this would be from the Adam and Eves. There's one called the Panda Bears, Adam and Eves, and I don't know what the other one is. I mean, anybody wants a little bit more detail, I can go and find that information and give it to you. This is off my head because I want to make this a little bit more brief. But there you have it. The Curtiss P40B, America's premier fighter in 1941. The P-38 has not been used yet. The P-39, yeah. But this baby here could absorb a lot of punishment, was relatively fast, and it could hold up well. And it also did good in the Mideast, the North Africa. It was a menacing plane to fly against the ME-109E. And, I mean, throughout the South Pacific, at lower altitudes, and in China. In China, this is basically an air superiority fighter. Shot down bombers, fighter planes. It did pretty well. So I'm going to end this video here. Hope everybody has a nice weekend. And my next one will be either the P51B or the P38. P51B is smaller, so I mean it's the same scale as a Kobe, so you can see it a little bit better. But I'm going to try to do slower if I bring the P38. The P38 is pretty massive. But I think I'm going to do that one so you can get a good look at that plane too, because that would have been a contemporary of this plane in the early days of the war. And the P-38 survived the whole war. It did really well in the Pacific. It didn't do so well high altitude in Europe, but that's a story for that video. So I hope you enjoyed this look at a classic American plane and basically the form that it looked at when it flew. P40B by Curtiss Wright. Oh, let me put it down. Oh, one more thing. These had drop tanks on them too, so the range could be extended above 1,000 miles. Like I said, it carried 4 30 cal to 50 cal and some pretty well-trained pilots. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you again soon.